Wonderful. Hi. Oh, wonderful. So many people on the call. Thank you so much for joining. Hello and welcome to another informative webinar for the Beanstalk Venture Studio and our first program focused on drought and climate resilience. Hi, I'm Nat. I'm the operations lead for the Venture Studio. We're thrilled to have you here today. It's a really busy time for us. Our first cohort of drought and climate resilience innovators have just come on board. We are already scouting for our second cohort of innovators with IP that could transform the way farmers and land managers live with drought here in Australia and around the world, which is what we're here to discuss today. We'll provide you an update on the Venture Studio, why we exist, what we offer, and who we're looking for. We'll also provide an update on our first cohort of innovators. We're also going to spend some time with Juxi Leitner, the CTO of LYRO Robotics. Juxi is someone who has been on the journey of commercialisation, bringing innovation from the lab into the world through a startup. He'll have some great wisdom for you all, and if you're thinking about making that same journey for yourself. We'll also cover a few questions that have been received and go through the application process for researchers and innovators, as well as key dates for getting involved in cohort 2. So some housekeeping before we begin. We've got someone on our team moderating the chat function. If you submit a question, we'll respond either on our website FAQs or to someone on our team at the end who will be able to answer. One thing we've learned is that in somewhat classic fashion, Microsoft Teams can be a little janky when we want to use the chat function. We find it works best in the Teams app and sometimes isn't as great when you're watching from the browser. So if you are having trouble with posting a question, try it from the Teams app. We'll be recording this webinar for distribution to anyone who couldn't join us today. So because of that, we've switched off your smiling faces. Please expect to receive an email from us in the coming days with the recording and information on next steps. As we're wrapping up today, if you feel like you still have questions for the team, we'll finish off with the best contact details for you to speak with someone here before submitting an application. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this webinar is being broadcast. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today. We recognise that First Nations communities around the country have an enduring connection to the land, water and culture, and the oral histories passed down about drought can deeply inform the way we all understand and more effectively manage landscapes across Australia. I would like to also thank our partners at the Australian Federal Government DAF. Our Venture Studio, focused on drought and climate resilience, is made possible by the support and funding we have received from the Future Drought Fund as part of their Drought Resilience Commercialisation Initiative. This collaboration has made our first Drought Venture Studio possible, and we are deeply grateful for this partnership and commitment to developing innovative solutions to tackle drought and ensure a resilient future for Australian agriculture. So here's what you can expect today from today's webinar. An overview of the Venture Studio, the problem we're looking to solve, how we go about that, and who we're looking for. Cohort 2, our expression of interest is now open. So my colleague Anna will explain who and what stage technologies we're encouraging to apply a little later in the call. An update on Cohort 1, including the high-level numbers following the selection process for our innovators and a few of the innovators and technologies in the first cohort. Juxi Leitner will spend some time with us answering questions that might be relevant for other researchers thinking about commercialisation. And finally, we'll cover the stages of the application process for Cohort 2 and the key dates you should keep in mind if you are considering applying. So I'll now introduce you to my team who are joining us from the Venture Studio. Justin McMurray, our Senior Venture Builder here at the studio. Juz has been leading our team's work to select innovators and get Cohort 1 running and humming along. We'll also be joined by Venture Builder Anna Tao, who will steer some of our discussions today and help us wrap up by summarising the key dates and the application process. So let's get into it. I'm going to hand over to Juz, who will go through the overview of the Venture Studio. Thanks, Juz.
Thanks so much, Nat, and welcome everybody once again. Super excited to be sharing the latest and information about the Venture Studio, and very, very excited about how our latest expressions of interest campaign has launched. For those of you who haven't had much exposure to Beanstalk and our Drought Challenge, I'll just give a little bit of context before we get into details of the program. So we know that drought has always been a huge challenge for farmers, and climate change will only mean that those droughts become more frequent, more intense, and last longer than we have known. Australia has built a world-class agricultural sector in what is the driest inhabited continent, and we already invest a whole bunch of money in R&D on drought and climate resilient agriculture. However, what we know is only a small percentage or a small fraction of this IP is successfully commercialised and turned into actual products and services that help farmers. So the challenge is that there are very few pathways that allow these IP owners to actually commercialise their IP, and even more so, it's difficult for them to do that while maintaining or juggling their research or academic or other work commitments. So this is where Beanstalk really comes in. A lot of you would be familiar with this diagram. It's the classic valley of death as it relates to commercialization journey. Early stage venture creation is a really big risk, and it's a big challenge for a lot of more academic innovators. And public research funding often stops after initial proof of concept. And yet private funders later down the chain might want to see more progress and a more investable proposition that they can back. It's this gap, this area that we're trying to bridge, the valley of death, that we think there's a huge opportunity to help Australia make big steps on this front. And I'll tell you a little bit more now about how we intend to bridge that gap. So what is the Beanstalk Venture Studio? So we're an entire team. We've got 12 people, including 8 venture builders, that will create and develop IP-backed investment-ready ventures that will improve drought and climate resilience of Australian farming. So we do this in a bunch of ways. Firstly, we go out and find people like you, people who have the IP and the know-how and the innovations that could make a real difference. And we support you to commercialize or go through that early stage commercialization journey. We connect you with experienced co-founders, industry partners, and also potential backers. I'll talk a little bit more about the co-founders area, because this is the thing that allows us to provide this really flexible pathway. There are some of you on the call here that might not want to get up and quit their day job as a researcher. We have options for you, and that very much relates to how we bring co-founders into the equation. A lot of people still get a little bit confused about what a venture studio is. There are hundreds of versions of these, a little bit more popular overseas, so this is quite pioneering in Australia. Some of the important factors to know about the venture studio is that we help define and create new commercial ventures. Very typically, accelerators will just exist to push along existing companies, but often we will be creating those companies from scratch. So it is a very early stage. As I said, we find and match experienced co-founders who can actually complement the innovator and the venture, which is a huge part of the commercialization challenge. We also provide hands-on, one-on-one support from our team of venture builders during both phases of the program, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And that's over a more extended period too. For the ones that get through to our subsequent phase, there's going to be about 18 months of support, which is a significant lift. And lastly, as Nat said, we have generous funding from the Future Drought Fund, the FDF, and that means we can take 0%. Yes, you heard it right, 0% equity in your venture. So it's completely non-dilutive. So let me move across into cohort 2, which is a big topic for today, and the expressions of interest. So as I said, our venture studio is split into 2 large phases. Phase 1, which runs over about 3 months, and phase 2, which runs about over 12 months. You can see the timings for the next cohort at the top of that. We're bringing this second cohort through in phase 1 between November and February. We'll give you a break over summer, don't worry. And then the subsequent phase runs between April and February 2025-26. So phase one is just this 3-month phase where we bring in 24 innovators to validate the commercial viability of their IP and find a co-founder. So sometimes we call this a sprint or a very, very focused kind of effort to get you to the baseline level of commercialization and to check whether there is feasibility and viability and potential for your innovation to go forward. This is the 3-month part of the program. No fees, as I've talked about. That includes co-founder matching. It would probably require between a day and a day and a half work per week on the innovator's behalf. It's always a little bit flexible and it can be spread out in a variety of ways. There's also a budget to invest in some allied services, or we can help you with some ag tech expertise or branding or IP or various things that might be needed in this early stage. And obviously the one-to-one support is there as well. Phase two is a longer term program. There's up to $250,000 of support. We just picked the top 4 ventures out of the 24 innovators in the first phase. So this is a much more targeted campaign with much more significant levels of support. That $250K can pay partly for a salary stipend for the co-founder. There's also a more significant budget for allied services support. And that's also the time when we can really connect you into our industry partners as well. I might hand across to Anna, because one of the common questions that we get is drought resilience. Well, what does that mean and what qualifies? So Anna?
Thank you, Jess. So during our cohort 1 recruitment, we got so many, curiosities from all kinds of research and students, not only in agriculture, but in the broader technical space. But often the misperception is, I'm not doing anything directly into drought responses. We're not in drought, or I'm not doing anything water. Am I still valuable? The quick answer is yes. So these are 10 challenge areas that we have heard from our industry partners and future drought funds, which covers everything from helping with farmers around water management on site to actually thinking about diversified incomes through utilizing existing byproducts or waste that farms may have. So because having a financial resilience during very volatile climate is also a big problem that the industry is telling us. So long story short, we are looking for all range of technologies. If you're not from the agriculture industries, but you have a innovation that you think will be suitable, we'd love to hear from you. And this is where our phase 1 fits, to do that validation into the sector as well.
Cool. Anna, can you tell us a little bit more about the types of innovators?
So what we find out is as a venture studio, we see there's all kinds of origination of innovations. It could be a professional researcher from a public research organization like a university, where you have developed a proof of concept with associated IP to ready for commercialize. But we also recognize there's some brilliant innovations happening in the industry, in the farms. So if you're industry experts, a great engineer, for example, in the agribusiness space, and you find this fantastic innovation can be applied, we'd love to hear from you as well. And last but not least, if you are young students who is doing a research or an innovation during your study of master or PhD, and you feel like this could be applied into the challenge you see, we'd love to hear from you as well. So just to be a reminder, because we're funded by the Department of Agriculture, to be eligible, currently our studio is available for innovator who is having a Australian citizenship, permanent residence, or the IP is associated, incorporate into an Australian company. But if you have any doubts, give us a call or send us an email, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay. And what about the selection criteria?
We've seen a whole range of different interests and applications throughout cohort 1. So what we have thought it would be really beneficial for people to see is where we add the value the most. So this table is not a yes or no cut, it's more around where we see the value. So in the left-hand side, where we see the add value the best is if you are in the early stage of forming a venture, you're looking for that co-founder or potential founder who's going to drive the commercialization, that would be a great starting point. If you already have identified a massive problem domestically as well as a global challenge for the areas that you can solve, that will be fantastic. If even you have some early tractions with farmers or customers industry, that's a great plus. From a technology point of view, we generally look at technology readiness levels, everything between 3 to 6. In plain English, that means you may have a proof of concept in the labs and ready to deploy, all the way to actually conducting trials in the designed customer environment. So when we talk about IP, we talk about not just patents. So if you're having doubt whether not having a patented IP will be qualified, the short answer is yes. So last but not least, from a business model point of view, as I mentioned, you see a great complementary into the drought-related areas, and we can bring these relevant industry partnerships to help you to build the ventures. Then you are definitely a great fit for us.
Great, thanks, Anna. And I might add a few things to that because we do get a lot of questions about suitability and the selection criteria. As Anna said, there's definitely a sweet spot, and hopefully this gives a little bit more context. We'll also publish this on our website and FAQs after the call. But there's also some degree of flexibility. No single innovator or venture ticks every single box. What we found from our previous campaign is that there are different points on the spectrum for different elements of the criteria. So it might be that some innovators do have really deep involvement in the venture and to be in that driver's seat. That's terrific. There might be others who want to take a little bit more of a passenger seat and potentially play more of a role as a scientific advisor. That's, our program accounts for that as well. Sometimes it's difficult to get insight into the size of the available market. So again, we can sort of help flesh that out if needed. As Anna alluded, the sweet spot is generally TRL 3 to 6. However, there are examples of TRL 7 and 8 that would actually be suitable given looking at the holistic kind of state of the venture. And there's also a question about, well, I've already got a bunch of funding. Am I eligible? The short answer is it depends. If you've got a little bit of funding or there's some grant funding or maybe even angel investment from an investor, that's likely still going to be totally okay with where we're up to. It's probably only the scenario where you've raised significant amounts of capital and have a team in place and you're well into market that you're probably a little bit too late stage. So hopefully this gives a little bit more context and nuance. The short story is that if you're unsure, you should absolutely submit your expression of interest and we can help you clarify what is suitable and what's not, but we'd certainly love to hear from you. That pretty much wraps up the quick overview of cohort 2 and the plans and dates and types of people we're looking for. So we might just give a very, very quick snapshot on cohort 1 because we've got 24 lovely innovators in the studio at the moment. Well, not literally, but digitally and remotely in the studio. So Anna, can you give us a little bit of a snapshot of cohort 1?
Absolutely, Just. So yeah, very excited to be working closely with the cohort 1. We're in week 3 with them right now. Thanks to our hybrid and nationally diverse team of Venture Studio, we're able to work with them online and remote, regardless where they're from. So a quick highlight of what we've seen since we launched in June, looking for these innovators. We got super surprised actually at the amount of interest. Overall, we got 237 express of interest submitted from literally every jurisdictions across Australia and some overseas as well. And then we also received 111 completed applications, everything from entrepreneurs who already have a company, like just alluded to existing research teams from public research who hasn't, formed the company yet. So out of that, we have selected 24 teams, and in that 24 innovators, 40% of them are from public research organizations. So we got a tremendous amount of interest across a whole range of public research institutes, everything from a kind of local DPI to a university such as University of Sydney, James Cook, and also we have got number of interest from CRCs, such as soil CRC.
Great, thanks, Anna. Here's a little sneak peek of a few of the innovators that are taking part in cohort 1 as we speak. As you can immediately see, there's actually a fair range of types of innovators. Like on the left side, we have some early stage companies, and they have made some progress on a range of fronts. So there's Cecilia from VensoGrow that has this amazing technology. We also have Nick from Whole, and so they're probably a little bit later stage. Whereas on the right-hand side, you can see we've got some researchers from UQ and also the CSIRO, and they're really cut from a classic researcher mold and at a very, very early stage of their innovation. We have solutions across hardware, software, biologicals. We cover every state and nearly every territory. We are putting a special call out for Northern Territory because we don't want people there missing out. We'd love to see some more applications from Northern Territory. And also you can check out our website for little mini profiles on all 24 innovators that we've got lined up and working. And I know some of them are even willing to have a chat to you if you have any questions. So again, a big range, some flexibility on what's the best fit and where some things are still a very, very good fit. So yeah, definitely I think that the portfolio that we have is a really diverse and interesting mix. I'm going to wrap us up talking about cohort 1 because I'm anxious to move forward and have a little bit of a fireside chat with Juxi Leitner. So I might just stop sharing the screen for now so that we can actually see Juxi's lovely face on screen. Juxi, to help kick us off, would you mind just introducing yourself and telling everyone here today a little bit about your company?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Justin, for having me, and thanks to the Beanstalk team. I'm Dr. Juxi Leitner. I'm the co-founder and CTO of LYRO Robotics. I'm also an academic, and I've been exactly on some of these questions that come up that Justin was and the team was just presenting, like how do I look at my research and think of impact outside of academia. And that's how we initially started. We were like doing this really interesting research at an ERC Center of Excellence, and we were like, this is actually something that might help people, not just get citations and grant funding, but actually help people literally in the field. So that's how we started looking at what is a potential application area of that. And we didn't have any venture studios to talk to be honest. We did talk to accelerators and investors and try to see what we can do, talking to customers and trying to see how we can get this rolling. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
And Juxi, give us a little bit of a flavor of where you're up to now with LYRO Robotics and the state of the company.
Yeah, so we incorporated in 2019, so we're a 5-year-old startup, which is by itself already a success. But we have turned this fundamental research, particularly, I guess, from a robotics component and computer vision machine learning component into a product. We have built not just a software stack, but also a technology that's incorporated in a physical robotic system because it needs to do a physical task. And particularly we're doing post-harvest. So after things have been harvested in the field, we post-harvest process food and vegetables to get packed into boxes. So your stocks that a typical backpacker job is something that our robots are currently doing. And so with I think the first commercial ready was about a year ago that we sent it out. And now the robots pack about 1 metric ton per day, roughly, per robot. So it's been very exciting to see it from like an idea to turn it into something that physically, does a job in the real world.
Yeah, amazing. And like, I'm sure everyone here would love to get a little bit more of an insight into what it was like in those early days when you're sitting in the academic world, you had all this lovely research and innovation and possibility. You were probably trying to juggle, how do you validate that with customers and how do you get into ag tech? And meanwhile, there's this whole commercial world of ventures. So What was it like juggling those different worlds in the early days?
It's a lot of things, and as you say, it feels like a lot of balls in the air that you're trying to keep all in the air while you're also trying to run. So yeah, no, it's really interesting looking back at it. I think you always have to be a bit naive that you can do all these things when you're starting out, but you also quickly realize that there's certain things that you're really good at and certain things that you need a lot of help with. And particularly at the beginning, we needed to understand what we can do. I'm an academic, and I'm an academic at heart. So my initial idea was like, oh, my undergrad students and PhD students should start a company with that. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So at some point, Nicole Robinson and I pulled the plug and said, okay, we're going to do it ourselves. We were research fellows at the time, looking at an academic career and trying to understand how that would potentially impact us as well. Lots of different things in your head, like from thinking like an academic of like, what's my next paper, what's my next research idea, all of a sudden now being thrown into this sort of business world and venture world where you're like, what is the big vision that you can, really push forward with the technology? What is the customer segment that you're tackling, right? Even if you already focus on agriculture, which initially we didn't. We looked at broadly from manufacturing all the way to agriculture. But even within agriculture, there's so many different application areas. So how do you hone in on what the actual problem is that you can solve? And that's just a lot of conversations with a lot of people. And it is in the end like an exploration phase, almost like your early stage research, where you have a lot of ideas, lots of potential experiments to run, but you don't really know which one will actually yield the results that you can publish, or in this case, the product that will make a difference in the market.
That's really interesting. Actually, we've already got a question in asking about whether there's any plans for expansion towards planting, harvesting, crop spraying. So I'll let you answer that in one tick. But I think that you touched on an interesting point, is that there might actually be some parallels between, I guess, the philosophy and mindset that's required in research as it is in the venture world. There's a lot about lean methodologies in the venture world, which is supposedly about setting hypotheses, gathering data, and making informed decisions. I'd love to hear your insights about those two worlds colliding.
No, absolutely. And yeah, I think that was maybe one of the positive surprises, was how much, that experimental thinking, setting up hypotheses and validating them can be translated into a business, particularly an early stage business. Obviously, once you grow, it's probably less like that. But at the beginning, for us, it was really almost running it like a research study. What is the value proposition? What is the questions that people want answering? What is the problems that people need a solution to? Rather than just thinking of like, how do I build this technology better? So like trying to really understand that. But it is in the end not too different from running your small research group. At the beginning, you have very limited budget. You are trying to tell a story about how you can get more money, whether that's from an ARC grant or an industry partner. In this case, whether it's from a venture capitalist or a customer, you still have to convince them that the technology and the product that you're building makes sense to them. So very similar thinking there. I think the other thing that as an academic, we tend to be relatively good, particularly if you've been in academia for a while, is you understand what the strengths of certain people are. When you hire them as PhD students, when you see them as undergrad students, I think that's very important at the early stage for a startup as well, to hire the right people that come along on the journey with you. And that's not just obviously on the technical side of things, but also on the business side of things. And as you mentioned before, there's this idea at the beginning that you need to be doing everything, from writing a business plan to Excel spreadsheets about budgets to allocating of resources to running the technology. And that maybe works for the first month or two, but it's very soon you realize that you can't be doing everything. And so, find your lane to some extent and say, okay, I'm happy to focus on the business side, or I'm happy to focus on the technology side, or I know that I'm not good at X, so I'm going to hire somebody to do X. And I think you mentioned that before in sort of services that Beanstalk can provide. I think that's an excellent opportunity to explore what is the things where I need help with, because sometimes we just also don't know what's out there, right? As an academic, we think of certain things, but we don't think about the business side of things. So it's very good to partner with somebody that complements that. And I think there was a question about the technology and where to go next. I'm going to take that quickly. Absolutely, there's room to go into different places with it. So the core of what we do at LYRO is incorporated what we call LYRO machine intelligence, which is the incorporation of computer vision with machine learning and a gripping system, which can be going onto a tractor to pick things in the field or sit stationary in a packing house. Technologically, there's some challenges and questions there, but also from a product point of view, if you look at the value proposition to a farmer, particularly when you think about labor shortages, it's like, yes, we can deal with labor shortages in the field or post-harvest, but the significance of putting things into the field and the significant technological challenges will make it less of a nice value proposition in terms of economic benefit to the farmer. If it costs like 10 times more to do the same job in the field with the robotic system that it does in a packing shed, less interesting to a farmer to spend money on that now. So we have ideas on how to get out there. I think the technical challenge is how to make it cheap and reliable. And that's sort of, I guess, tied in with the business challenge of making a valid value proposition that that is, interesting enough to people put in money.
Cool. Thanks for jumping in and answering that. Just a couple of questions left. When we were chatting the other day, we sort of had this interesting conversation about commercialization pathways in Australia versus maybe what's more typical overseas. Like where do you think Australia is up to, and what do you think we might need to be working on?
That's obviously my opinion here, so I'll take it with a grain of salt as a single data point. But I think one of the things that Australia is really good at is doing fundamental research. I think we have enough support to do that. I think what is lacking is, and I think you showed that in some of the graphs before, there's the sort of value of depth. And even from a tech transfer point of view, you have like this good idea, you do a proof of concept, but what is the funding, or what is the resourcing there to push to the next level before bigger VCs or customers are willing to put in money? And so I think that is really the big gap. And that's always the big gap, but particularly in Australia, I think there's a lack of experience on how to bridge that gap. There isn't a lot of people out there that have successfully done that. When we started, we were looking at other people to see how they spun out of universities, and we found maybe like a handful of people in Brisbane, and they had very varied stories about that. So I think that experience is one gap. Providing extra resources to explore that, I think, is the second one. And I think it's exciting to see that there is now, through you and the federal government, some areas where there is the opportunity for people to explore that, because there is limited mobility between industry and academia in Australia compared to other countries. So in Germany, for example, is a very good example. Not so much on the startup front, but they have like this small and medium-sized enterprises called the Mittelstand, and they very closely work with industry, with universities at that level, where a lot of PhD students and master students go and do internships with that small, medium-sized company, and then come back and maybe become an academic later. But there's this sort of exchange of information and people, which I think is sort of a core lacking part here in Australia. We need to have more people talking, academics talking with industry, and more industry talking to academia to understand where the real problems are in that gap.
All right, yeah, that we could probably talk for a lot longer on that, but we'll draw it there. And last question, just to wrap up, and just to be clear, Juxi did not come through the Beanstalk program. We really wish we existed at that time, but like, it's a really terrific example to others. But look, last thoughts, Juxi, on any advice you'd have on potential, researchers or innovators, maybe their later stage career or early stage career, like while they thinking about embarking on something like this.
Early stage, absolutely do it. There's nothing to lose. If you're just finishing your PhD, try it out for a year. If you get venture funding, great. If you don't, you have at least something that you can put in your CV and said you would try to explore something, and you learn so much in that year. There's absolutely virtually no risk for you. Obviously, for later stage academics, and I guess sort of for me, it was also the question: how do I combine an academic career with the entrepreneurial side of things? And there isn't a single answer, but there's always ways to make it happen. And I think there's a lot more opportunity now to actually talk to people within your organization or even outside of your organization, how they have bridged that gap. And I think there's much more appetite now than there was 5-10 years ago. And so there's programs at different universities that really help you. And, particularly programs like Beanstalk, and yes, I haven't gone through it, but it looks really exciting. That's why I'm very excited about the opportunity here. It gives you a bit of breathing space to say, okay, I can shift a bit of resourcing to exploring whether that makes sense before I need to do the full 100% only startup jump, which I think is important to I guess appease some of the anxiety that we had at the beginning too. How do I balance between an academic career and this entrepreneurial enterprise?
Awesome. Juxi, thanks so much for giving up your valuable time. It's really, really appreciated. And hopefully we'll see you around soon. So I might just check if there are any other questions that we have. I know I've got one question that's come through another channel, but Nat, has anything popped up in your area?
Yeah, we just had Kia at the start talking around IP, but I think we covered that. So the question being, can IP be an idea that is not patent or developed? And I think we covered that. So thanks, Kia, for your question. And then Adam was speaking directly to Juxi around expansion. So thank you, Adam, for the question.
Yeah, I think we've covered both of them. Yes, and there was another question that I got by email today or yesterday, which was, we had some innovators who'd applied for cohort 1. Do they need to resubmit an application for cohort 2? The short answer is yes, but it'll be pretty painless. And I think we might actually go into a rundown of what's involved in that application process and key dates. Anna, would you like to take us through the application process?
Yeah, happy to. So compared to the cohort 1, if you have applied to cohort 1, we have significantly streamlined the process. So hopefully this time will be painless. So simple things is, if you think you might be a potential fit, all we need from you, first of all, is just go to our website, ventures.beanstalkagtech.com, and register your interest. It takes you a minute. So this will be a great way for us to know you're interested. And then you will get sent the instruction of how to apply and what needs to be prepared. So definitely encourage you to do that today if you are thinking about participating. Once you get into that, you will get an email about how to apply. So there's a part of preparing your application. We ask you for 3 things, and roughly I would say you should reserve about 2 to 3 hours to get all of these done. In summary, we are looking for a 2-page of application summary about your innovation, what's the business, and a key question like this. On top of that, we'd love to have your CV, as well as a 2 to 3 minutes about you video. We also will provide you that key question we want you to cover in the video, so don't panic if you don't know what you cover. And then last but not least, if your IP is associated with a public research organization like a university, we'd love to have your kind of email support to say, yep, happy to support you for this 1 and 1.5 days to start your commercialization journey. That's all you need to prepare before you submit. Once you're ready, click on that application button. It will take you about 10 to 15 minutes to get everything uploaded, answer a few of the questions, and you are done.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Yeah, we're not expecting Hollywood productions for your video. It's more a very informal thing, but we'd love to hear and see you talk a little bit about your innovation. So you're probably wondering about what the key dates are for the cohort 2. So you can see up the top left, the applications and expressions of interest are open now. The final deadline for that is the 29th of September. It's at 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. However, there is an early deadline of the week before, which is the 22nd of September, same time. Now, the early deadline means that we can actually start assessing your application immediately, and it gives us the chance to clarify any details that we might need with you, and it gives us a little bit of window of time. And what we found with the last cohort was that this was tremendously valuable, especially for the innovator themselves who might have needed to tweak something here or there. So certainly very much encourage you to try to hit that early deadline of the 22nd of September. Otherwise, the final deadline is on the 29th. You can see that we go through a multi-week process of assessment and selection, and that's partially done across the venture building team, but we also have an independent selection committee of industry experts who will participate in that process. You would hear about your success or otherwise either in late October or very early November at the latest. The cohort itself kicks off formally on the 18th of November and runs over the course of 3 months, obviously a break over summer. And the week before that kickoff is when we start onboarding people as well. So you can get like a high level sense of those timings, and all of these details, information are either on our website or will be getting uploaded very shortly. So just to recap what Anna said, head to our website, ventures.beanstalkagtech.com. If you have any questions or you had trouble submitting it today, just send us an email to ventures@beanstalkagtech.com. And not only will we be able to reply to you, we'll also post that as an FAQ on our website as well. So I think that's pretty much from all the details. Nat, I might hand it back to you to wrap us up.
Yeah, I've just got one quick question that's come in around what about if you're an independent expert? So, for example, you can't get a letter of support. Anna, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, happy to. So the letter of support only apply that if your employer need to sponsor you for your time to participate. So if you're an independent expert, the innovation is not associate, and you don't need your employee to pay you for your time, you don't need the support. So it's optional, only applies if you are in that situation. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. All right, great. So let's wrap it up. Thank you so much. We've got 2 minutes. Deadline for the Expressions of Interest campaign is 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, September 29. We strongly encourage applications by 9 p.m. September 22, so we can start assessing your application immediately and have time to clarify any details with you. We're also taking referrals. So if there's someone you know that might be a great fit for this initiative, please dob them in, send them our details, or send us their details. We don't bite. We'll take very good care of them. And thank you so much for joining us today. You can expect our team to be in touch with a recording of the webinar. We hope to hear from as many potential innovators as we can. So thank you again for your time, and see you soon.